AITA for being the reason my grandparents refused to help my dad anymore and laughing when he and his wife complained about it. My mom died when I 16 meters, 07, she left me an inheritance that my dad was put in charge of. The money was supposed to be for my future and nobody was supposed to touch it unless I really needed it, and it was pretty specific. I read through it 5 months ago when shit went down. My dad got married again when I was 10 and he has an 8-year-old stepdaughter and now a 4-year-old daughter with his wife Louise. My half-sister was diagnosed with a rare condition when she was 2. It was always clear something was wrong, but they had a really hard time figuring out what it was. Doctors would say she'd be fine and she was older. This condition isn't life-threatening, like she won't die from it, but it could potentially leave her permanently disabled in a bad way. A few months ago, I found out about this hard to get into treatment for it. But it was expensive. There is ways to get help paying for it, but that takes longer. So my dad decided he would use the inheritance mom left me to pay for it. He tried asking me, but he was going to do it anyway, and when I said no he told me as much. Then he shamed me for saying no, for putting college before the health of my half-sister. Louise was in the room with us, but she wasn't talking before I said no. She asked me how I could look at my half-sister at the life she will have if we don't do something and say no. I told my dad I would never forgive him if he took the money. After I read her will grandparents had a copy, I brought up the fact it was only for my needs, it could be spent before. He told me mom was dead, and he hoped she'd understand. I told him I never would. He told me I'd understand when I'm older. I told him I hated him, and I told Louise she better never speak to me again because I found it disgusting she encouraged stealing from me and taking my mom's money. I told my grandparents what dad did. They're my mom's parents but had stayed friendly with dad, and there were times they would help him. They shared stuff with him all the time, and grandpa would look at dad's car for free if anything was wrong. That all stopped when I told them. Dad couldn't figure out why until he confronted them about it last week. They told him he had some nerve stealing from me, taking their daughter's money and spending it on his child. My dad was mad they didn't understand and support his decision. He confronted me about it and complained about what I did. I laughed and told him I had warned him I would never forgive him for it. He asked how I got to be so heartless and selfish. I told him I would never forget what he did. AITA